I really wasn't either of those things. But anyways, when I graduated high school, Vietnam was at its peak, so the military was after everybody, so I joined the Navy, did 4 years in the Navy. After I got out of the Navy, I moved back to Massachusetts and I needed a job. So I went downtown, put my name in a lot of places, and I landed a job in a bank as a bank teller. Did that for just a few months and I was rapidly promoted to a branch manager. So I had my own nice little branch bank in a nice little community, and I kind of ran the place to my liking. And what I used to do, I was still drawing and painting the Disney characters, but just for my own pleasure, my own amusement. What I used to do is every Christmas time I'd take about maybe a dozen of my Disney paintings, frame them up, and I'd bring them into the bank, and I'd hang them all around my branch office. They looked very nice with the Christmas decorations, okay? And of course my customers would marvel over them. They thought they were wonderful. And what happened one particular Christmas, one of my regular customers was the anchorman of the local 6 o'clock news. He was a regular customer, came in all the time, but what I didn't know about him was he was a huge Disney collector. And he came in one Christmas time and saw all this Disney art, and he came up to me and he says, "Where did you get all this Disney stuff from? It's worth a fortune." And I said, "No, it's not. It's not worth anything. It's just stuff that I did." Anyway, what he wanted to do was a little feature on the 6 o'clock news, local banker paints Disney kind of thing. So I said, okay, and he came over to the house one night with his film crew, and they filmed me drawing and painting a little bit, showed a lot of my artwork, and they showed it on the 6 o'clock news. And matter of fact, it was very well received. They actually ran it several nights. And of course, after they ran that, then all my regular customers would come in, and they'd say, geez, we saw you on the news. You're wasting your time. You should be, you should be working for Disney. Well, that's easy to say, but how do you get from A to B, And what happened was, we used to hire local policemen. And like I said, I worked in a small bank in a small town, so I knew the entire police department. And we used to hire policemen off duty to be security guards. So what happened was, one of these policemen, he goes over to the TV station that did the broadcast and got a copy of the videotape. And without my knowledge, he writes a letter. First of all, he had to know this cop. He was your typical pot-bellied, gray-haired Irish policeman, accent and everything, the Irish accent, very gruff, but the sweetest guy inside that you ever want to know. And he wrote this letter to Disney in California at the time saying, "You got to hire this guy because he loves Disney and he draws good." Not asking them, just telling them, "You got to hire this guy." He wraps this up with a videotape and he mails it off to California, and then he tells me what he had done. Okay, and I was like very upset because I wasn't ready to take this step yet. The fact of the matter is, I really owe a lot to him because I probably never would have made the step without being pushed a little bit, because I was never very assertive. But I used to have this little fantasy going on in my head that someday Disney would sort of magically come to Massachusetts and pluck me out of my house and make me a Disney artist. But I felt if I approached it and I failed, well then the dream was gone. Okay? So I really actually needed this push. So anyways, he mails this off to California. Period of about 2 weeks later, I got the tape back in the mail with a letter from the head of the Disney Animation Department in California saying that they were very impressed with my work. However, they had no openings, but if I wanted to pursue this, I could contact a gentleman by the name of Ralph Kent in Florida. Okay, well, now I had a name. I'm going to take the ball and see how far I can run with it, okay? So I wrote my own letter to this Mr. Kent, wrapped up the tape, and mailed it off myself. Mailed this off to Mr. Kent. Like I said, it took about 2 weeks to hear from California. I mailed this off to Ralph Kent. See, who am I drawing here? Okay. I mailed this off to Ralph Kent, and I waited 2 weeks. I waited a month. I waited 2 months. I waited 3 months, I'm hearing nothing. Almost 4 months going by, and I'm going crazy. So finally I pick up the phone and I get information for Florida, and I start calling around, information for Walt Disney World, this and that. And before you know it, I get a phone number for this Ralph Kent at Walt Disney World. So I pick up the phone and I call long distance to Florida, and I get a hold of his secretary. And I says to her, this is Don Williams calling, and several months ago, I mailed a videotape to Mr. Kent. I just wondered if he had received it. And she said, oh yeah, he received it. It's sitting here on his desk. He hasn't looked at it yet. I said, well, I have an opportunity to come to Florida. And as long as I'm coming to Florida, I wonder if I could maybe meet with Mr. Kent. She said, well, when are you coming? I said, well, when can I see him? I had no intention of going to Florida, but she made me an appointment. So now I had to take off from work and pack up a bunch of artwork and get a flight and all this kind of stuff. And I'm on my way to Florida with about 55, 60 pieces of original art that I did to show this guy. Now this is the whole ball of wax here, right? In the way it was kind of cool, because at that time the art department was in the tunnel underneath the Magic Kingdom. Everybody know there's a tunnel under the Magic Kingdom? There's a whole tunnel system under the Magic Kingdom. And the art department was in the tunnel. So this was very cool. This is very exciting. I get to go in the tunnel and everything, right? But at the same time, it was nerve-wracking because this was it. If this didn't happen, it's not going to happen, ever, okay? And I figured, how am I going to convince this Mr. Kent how I feel about Disney? I'm going to show him my artwork. He's either going to like it or he's not going to like it. But how am I going to express how I feel about Disney to this guy, right? Now anyways, I'll never forget it. I got to go down in the tunnel. I met with this Mr. Kent in the art department. At that time, they had a very large art department. They had about 16 artists, but it was very specialized. You did either characters or you did realism, okay? It was split right down the middle. They had about 8 artists that specialized in doing the characters and only the characters. The other 8 artists did the more realistic things, like portraits of Walt, paintings of the castle, and one didn't do the other. If you were a realistic artist doing the castle and you needed a Mickey in it, the character artist would do the Mickey for you. Okay? So what happened was, when I met with Ralph Kent, we went into this big conference room. I'll never forget it. It was a big, huge conference room, big conference table, and he brought 2 of his top character artists in to review the artwork with him. And they had all my artwork spread out all over this huge conference table. And they're all looking at it like with a fine-tooth comb. They got this artwork and they're like, they're looking at it. And they're doing this for about 20 minutes, a half an hour. Not saying a word. They didn't say whether they liked it, whether they hated it. And before I know it, they left the room. As far as expressing my feelings to Ralph, that wasn't an issue. We just connected. Ralph wrote his first letter to Walt when he was 8, okay? And we kind of had, it just got transpired, our feelings about the company, about the characters and stuff like that. So anyways, what happened after the artist left, Ralph told me he wanted to see me again the next day. I figured this is a good sign. He wants to see me again. So I went back the next day, and the way it was put to me by Ralph was, since I had no formal art training, he felt I needed a little bit of polish drawing the characters. What I was doing was good, but I guess I wasn't quite there. So what he was going to do, he was going to assign me one of his artists. And what he was going to do is give me model sheets on all the characters. Let me take a minute to explain what model sheets are. Every character in existence, there's like basically how to draw sheets on each character. Every character from Steamboat Willie, Snow White, Dwarfs, all the way up to current Tiana and so on and so forth. Not just your major characters, every character, incidental birds and forest animals. Every character has a number of drawing sheets. Basically shows you how to draw the characters. Shows you how they're constructed, shows you front view, back view, side views, different expressions. This is so all the artists will draw the character the same way, okay? And they're very, very protected, these model sheets. I've seen Xerox